Health-related physical fitness assessment and program design. This is lesson 16 and we're going to look at body composition and how to test for body composition. So the aim of this lesson is to provide the fitness instructor with the knowledge and skills to administer appropriate tests in order to determine body composition. The learning outcomes: you will be able to identify a variety of methods to determine body composition. You will be able to determine the appropriate test for a particular client, learn the advantages and limitations of each test, and also how to apply the results of the test when planning a program. Body composition then again refers to the body's relative amounts of fat and lean body tissue or fat-free mass in terms of muscle, bone and water. So we're going to look at the amount of fat that a person has on the body and ways of finding out their percentage fat. Measuring body weight. Well, when measuring body weight, we would use a balance beam scale with minimum clothing or a good quality weighing scales. It's important to use the same scales for each assessment and repeat the measurement under the same conditions and at the same time of day. So when initially we measure body composition, it's important that we do the same test again when we're evaluating whether it's improved or not, and we under the same conditions at the same time of the day. When measuring height, we use a stadiometer, which is a vertical ruler with a horizontal headboard. Measure without shoes, make sure the back is straight, the head and shoulders are touching the wall. The weight should be distributed evenly, arms by sides. And the client inhales deeply and holds breath while board is brought to the highest point on the head. Measuring body composition then. There are a variety of ways of measuring body composition. The first one is a DEXA scan, which is a dual energy X-ray, hydrostatic weighing, bioelectrical impedance, the BOD-POD, body mass index, waist to hip ratio, and skin fold calipers. The first one we're going to look at is the DEXA scan. Using the machine here, and these machines are obviously very expensive, they're only available in a laboratory or hospital. The subject lies supine on the X-ray table and the subject is scanned from head to toe. The machine measures the relative amounts of fat and muscle and bone, and the results here are highly accurate, but as you can imagine, this test is expensive and can only be used by highly trained personnel. The next one is hydrostatic weighing, which is underwater weighing. The subject is placed in a cradle and holds breath while being weighed underwater. Anyone who's done physics before will recognise the Archimedes principle, which states that fat is less dense in water and muscle is more dense. It's also based on the principle that an individual with more muscle mass will weigh heavier and have a greater fat-free mass when they're weighed in water. Measuring body composition again can be done by bioelectrical impedance, and you will have seen some of these machines in gyms around the country, and it works on the principle that fat-free mass has a greater water and electrolyte content and greater conductivity. These machines are not as accurate as the other machines that we've looked at previously, and the results are affected by dehydration. However, they're useful tools as a guide for measuring body composition when the proper conditions are adhered to, and the first one is to abstain from eating or drinking within hours of the test. Avoid exercising within 12 hours of the test because this will dehydrate you, and we said originally that this works on the principle that fat-free mass has greater water and electrolyte content, and water conducts electricity, so it's important that the client is very hydrated. Measuring body composition again can be done with the BOD-POD, and the use of the BOD-POD correlates with the concept of underwater weighing. Two concepts are exactly the same, except that instead of using water this time, To measure body volume, the bod pod uses air displacement instead of water displacement and can measure fat-free mass quite easily. But again, with these machines, this kind of testing can be, although highly accurate, can be quite expensive. So when working in the field with large numbers of individuals for measuring body composition, we can simply use the body mass index. And this test is suitable for most individuals except the muscular individual. For example, the rugby player, the person who does a lot of weights in the gym, is obviously very muscular, and we've learnt that muscle weighs more than fat, so if you put these people on scales, their results will be skewed. So it's not suitable for the very muscular individual, but it is suitable for most individuals. The equipment needed is the scales and the stadiometer for measuring weight and height, as previously mentioned. The procedures: we measure the body weight in kilograms. We measure the height in meters using the stadiometer, as we've outlined previously. Square the meters, that is whatever height the person is, you multiply it by itself, and then divide the height into the weight in kilograms, using this little formula here. So the height, you get the height of the person in meters, square it, multiply it by itself, and then divide it into the weight, and then refer to the table over here for standards. So if we look at an example, we have John weighs 75 kgs and is 1.68 meters tall. So the first thing we do is to square the meters. So multiply 1.68 by itself, we get 2.82, divide that into 75, and we come out with 26.5 here. So that's John's body mass index. What we would look at then is the classification table for standards, and he falls into this category here, so he is overweight. So that is an area that John might work on to improve his body mass index through his exercise program. The next one we're going to look at is the waist to hip ratio. Again, a field test, very easy to do, no expensive equipment needed, and it's suitable for most clients. The equipment needed is a measuring tape. The test procedures: record the measurements in centimetres or inches at the waist, at the narrowest girth around the belly button, and again at the hip with the largest girth around the buttocks. Divide the waist by the hip measurement and check the table for standards. So if we look at an example here, we have female, the waist was 34 centimetres, the hip was 44 centimetres. If we divide the waist by the hip, we get 0.77, and we look over here, we have a female, so 0.80 or less. Reduced risk is quite a good body composition, so we have 0.77, so that body composition is quite good there. So it's a very easy, simple test to do for measuring body composition, and it's suitable for most clients. The next one we're going to look at is skin fold measurements. Client suitability: suitable for most individuals, but accuracy is very difficult with very overweight or obese individuals. Very suitable and very easy to do on your fit, lean athlete, because it's very easy to get an accurate skin fold measurement. Very hard to do on somebody who's quite overweight with carrying quite a lot of fat, so you'd be better off using one of the other methods if you have a client like that. The equipment needed: skin fold calipers and the recording sheet. The advantages: following practice, good accuracy can be achieved. This is a subjective test. A subjective test means that, well, the accuracy of the test depends on the instructor and the instructor who's doing the actual test, whether or not the instructor is good at taking skin folds or not. So it's quite subjective. So I would say do this test when you are very, very practiced and very, very sure that what you're doing is accurate. Limitations: it's quite invasive, it's a hands-on test, it takes a lot of time, a lot of practice to get it right. So those are the limitations. The test procedures: we're going to take the skin fold measurements at the right hand side of the body. We're going to take the skin fold with thumb and index finger, placing the calipers 1 centimetre below the fingers, and we're going to take 2 scores, possibly 3 scores if we need to, with a required accuracy of 1 millimetre between each score. So if we took a measurement the first time and we got 11, and then the second time we got 15, well then we haven't got the required accuracy of 1 millimetre between the 2 scores, so we'd have to take it a third time. Allow 15 seconds between each measurement. Make sure the nails are short for obvious reasons. We don't want to inflict any injuries on clients while we're doing the test. And measure when the skin is dry. So if you have a client coming in for a number of tests, we would more than likely do this one first because the skin is dry and it would be easier to take these measurements first. The site locations then. There are 4 sites to take: the biceps, the front of the arm, the triceps, the back of the arm, the subscapular, which is just underneath the scapula bone on the back, and the suprailiac, which is on the hip. So the first one we're going to look at is the triceps. So it's a vertical fold, as you can see from the image here, halfway between the acromion process, which is the shoulder, and the elbow. Use a measuring tape to measure the halfway point. So we'd measure between the acromion process, which is here on the shoulder, and the elbow. Put a little mark then on the skin with a biro, and that is your halfway point, and that is where you put the calipers. So you would pick up the skin just above that point. Make sure the arm is nice and relaxed and it's just down there by the person's side. Pick up the skin with the thumb and index finger, as you can see from the image, and place the calipers 1 centimetre below, and then you're going to read off the dial here at the millimetres. Read the measurement and record. Write it down. The next one is the bicep. Again, it's a vertical fold midway between the acromion process again and the crease of the elbow joint. So you're going to measure again with the measuring tape and put a little mark on the skin, and that is where you're going to apply the calipers. So pick up the skin with the thumb and the index finger and put the calipers 1 centimetre below, again recording the measurement. The next one is the suprailiac, which is on the hip, as you can see. It's a diagonal fold above the crest of the ilium. Grasp the skin diagonally this time with the thumb and the index finger and place the calipers about ½ an inch from the fingers. So the calipers will be just on the diagonal fold there. Again, read and record. The subscapular one at the back, here's, you can see it's a diagonal measurement taken just below the right scapula. Quite an easy one to do. Again, measuring with the thumb and the index finger, and record again and write it down. To calculate the percentage fat then, what you would do first of all is you would add the 4 measurements together. So you have 4 measurements: triceps, biceps, the subscapular and the suprailiac. You would add those 4 together and then refer to the table to estimate percentage fat. So if we look at an example here, if we have a 28-year-old male, so we have standards for males and females. So say if we have a 28-year-old male and we added the skin folds together and we got 50, we could see that his percentage fat is 19%. Well, what does that mean? Well, if we look at down here, we come to our classification tables. Slightly over fat, 16 to 29%. Quite a high range there. Is at the lower range of that. So a little bit of work to do, not too much. And these are the standards tables here. So quite easy to read, and you've your classifications there for male and female. The next lesson we're going to look at is program planning. So how to use the results of all the tests in prescribing the program.